There are moments in life that you can't explain, moments that twist your perception of reality, leaving you questioning everything you know. What happened to me that night was one of those moments. I've always thought of home as a sanctuary. A place where the outside world couldn't reach me. But after that night, home has never felt safe again. It was a Tuesday night, nothing unusual about it. I had stayed late at work, finishing up some reports, and by the time I left the office, it was well past 10 p.m. I was exhausted. Kind of exhaustion where your body moves on autopilot, your brain foggy and unfocused. I barely remember the walk from my car to my apartment complex. I was too busy scrolling through my phone, mindlessly checking notifications. But then I reached my door, and something felt wrong. It wasn't immediately obvious. The lock wasn't broken. The handle wasn't scratched. But I knew. A feeling in my gut told me that something was off. I always lock my door. Always. It's second nature to me. But when I placed my hand on the doorknob and turned it, it moved too easily. It was unlocked. My breath hitched in my throat. I hesitated, standing there in the dimly lit hallway, my mind scrambling for an explanation. Had I forgotten to lock it? No. I was sure I had. Had my landlord come in for maintenance? No, they would have notified me. Slowly, I pushed the door open. The apartment was silent. Too silent. You know that feeling when you walk into a space and can just tell someone has been there? The air feels different. It carries something. An energy, a weight. That's what I felt the second I stepped inside. I scanned the room. Nothing seemed disturbed. My couch was exactly how I had left it. The TV remote sat on the coffee table, untouched. My kitchen was clean, my dishes still stacked from breakfast that morning. And then I saw him. He was sitting in my chair. Not moving. Not speaking. Just sitting there, hands folded neatly in his lap, staring straight ahead like he had been waiting for me. Every muscle in my body locked up. My first thought? Maybe I had walked into the wrong apartment. Maybe I was so exhausted I had gotten confused. But no. That was my couch. My bookshelf. My jacket draped over the armrest. This was my apartment. And this man was a stranger. The air was thick with something indescribable. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, loud and erratic. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but my throat was dry. Then, he moved. Not much, just a slight tilt of the head, his gaze shifting towards me. Then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was too slow, too deliberate. Like he was savoring the moment. Like he had been expecting me. "You're late," he said. My skin prickled. My body screamed at me to run, to get out of there, but I was frozen. I couldn't understand. What did he mean? Late for what? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to speak. Who are you?" He let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head like I had just asked a stupid question. "You know who I am." I didn't. At least, I thought I didn't. But the way he said it, so certain, so knowing, it made something deep in my subconscious stir. A buried memory trying to claw its way to the surface. And then I did remember. I remembered being a child, lying in bed late at night, unable to sleep. I remembered the fear. The heavy, suffocating fear that kept me from turning my head. Because I knew that if I looked, I would see him. A man. Sitting in the corner of my bedroom. Watching. Not speaking. Not moving. Just waiting. For years, I had convinced myself it was just a nightmare. A childhood hallucination. But standing there, looking at this man, the same man, sitting in my chair, smiling at me like we were old friends. I knew. The nightmares weren't dreams. They were memories. "You do remember," he whispered. The lights flickered. A buzzing sound filled the air, low and droning. My vision blurred for just a second, just long enough for my knees to go weak. I stumbled backward, heart slamming against my ribs. "No," I muttered, shaking my head. "This isn't real. You're not real." But his smile widened. "Are you sure?" The walls seemed to pulse. The shadows stretched unnaturally, creeping toward me. The air grew heavier, thicker, pressing against my chest like invisible hands. I bolted. I turned and ran, slamming the door behind me so hard the walls shook. My hands fumbled with my phone, fingers trembling as I dialed 911. I barely managed to tell them someone had broken into my apartment before my voice cracked. The police arrived within minutes. They stormed in, guns drawn. But when they searched the apartment, he was gone. There was no sign of forced entry. No footprints. No disturbed furniture. Nothing. Except for the chair. The cushion was slightly indented, like someone had just been sitting there. But that was it. The officers exchanged glances, then looked back at me. Their expressions were skeptical, but they humored me, checking every corner, every closet. Finally, one of them sighed and gave me a look I'll never forget. "Are you sure you weren't just tired?" Tired. I wanted to argue, to insist that I knew what I saw. But as I stood there, staring at that empty chair, doubt slithered into my mind. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I had hallucinated the whole thing. Stress, exhaustion, paranoia. It was possible, right? But even as I tried to convince myself, I knew. Because that night, when I lay in bed, staring at my bedroom door, I felt it. That same heavy presence. That same suffocating stillness. I didn't move. I didn't turn my head. Because deep down, I knew. If I looked toward the chair in the corner of my room, I would see him. Still sitting. Still watching. Still waiting. Have you ever felt like someone was watching? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.